coming to you from the Champion Center about 20 hours after, Brian, you and I last did a video at Arizona Stadium. A little bit punch drunk at this point just from being so tired. Haven't gotten any sleep, really. I know you haven't as well, but we kind of saw this coming based on what's happened here the last 5 weeks, and Karl Dorrell and Chris Wilson relieved of their coaching duties. What were your general takeaways from today?
Yeah, I mean, just it's always, even if you see it coming, it's still a wild day when this type of things happens. And, we have kind of seen the writing on the wall, especially with Karl Dorrell. Chris Wilson, I think that one, I thought early in the season, I could kind of defend that defense a little bit and say, if the offense was doing anything, I thought that defense would be better. I didn't think they were as bad as they were showing. But these last 2 weeks have shown that they're actually pretty bad, because the offense has done quite a bit. With Owen McCown running that offense, the offense has done quite a bit to help out that defense. The defense is still, he used the term during the game last night, Swiss cheese, right? They can't stop anybody, even when they've been sitting on the sidelines for 5-6 minutes. And I think these last two games revealed more than the first three what this defense really is, and it's terrible. And I think that one has come up more to me in the last couple of weeks, to where, I think a change is necessary there. So neither one really surprises me. It's going to be interesting to see what this team does going forward, but you had to make both changes.
When you fire a head coach, generally the next guy that you hire is going to have different characteristics than the guy that you just fired. It's pretty much a guarantee when you look across, okay, why did they hire this guy? And then you look at the coach they fired and go, he's very different in these areas. Yeah. And a couple times during the press conference today here at the Champion Center, Rick George mentioned motivator, high energy when talking about the next coach that they want to hire. That was not Karl Dorrell's strength. In fact, that was his weakness. People just didn't think the guy had a pulse around here. And I do think he's a good football mind, but when you can't sell your program, this is not the NFL. It does not work at this level. And so I think that was, talking to people that covered him at UCLA, his biggest issue there, and was, I think, the downfall of his tenure here at CU. In terms of their interim selections, I think it went into the same thing. Mike Sanford, charismatic personality, a lot of energy. If you tuned into the press conference today, you can just, he oozes charisma. Yeah. And Gerald Chapman, like you mentioned, I was surprised that he was the pick to be the defense coordinator, but same thing, high energy, a guy that's a motivator. So I don't think that either of these guys has a great opportunity to succeed based on the schedule they have coming up, based on what we see in the first 5 weeks. But for these players that are going to have new voices leading them here the last 7 games, I do think that is a good quality for them to have in that role.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that you just needed a new voice at some point, right? Like you're saying, and it is a brand new voice. And I think, Karl had more of a pulse than the fans give him credit for, but it's not like Mike Sanford. It's not like Phil McGagan. It's not like Gerald Chapman, right? Yeah. Chris Wilson was kind of a more low-key type of guy from what I gathered just in my interactions with him. Both good guys. I like them both, but both seem to be more of that low-key type of guy. The new interim guys are not that, And even Clay Patterson, the offensive coordinator, he's got some, good energy, good personality to him. And, so I think that they're now being led by some guys that bring some energy. They'll bring some excitement to this team. Does it produce wins? We'll see. Sometimes that could be a difference for college kids, but there's still a talent gap here. And, they're still trying to fix a lot of schemes in a very short amount of time. So they've got 2 weeks, and that's why you do it during the bye week, is you've got more time to work on it. But it's hard to imagine that this season's going to flip around and all of a sudden they're going to win 6 of their next 7 games and they're playing in the Cheez-It Bowl or something, whatever it's called these days.
You had to like what Mike Sanford said here today. And I think that his message about this being about the student athletes, the fact that he's going to meet with them, every player on this team on Monday, is exactly what you want to hear. And him talking about how he's grown from the opportunity he got as a head coach earlier in his coaching career. But as we know, press conferences don't win football games. It's going to be really difficult. The timing of it is as good as it's going to get. Now they have almost 2 weeks to get ready for it. What are your expectations for this football team? Is it kind of seeing what the offense did from a competitive standpoint? and hoping that the defense can somehow have some type of improvement to win a game or two? Is that what the expectations are?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I believe that there's more talent than the results show on this team. And so for me, the expectation is they're going to play better football. Now, does it mean that they win all these games? No, but I think that I expect this team to not get blown out every week, and that's what they've been doing. Is every single week, it's just getting blown out. And when I cover a game, I do my play-by-play on my notes, and at some point when I have to get my story done, and if it's a blowout, I just stop writing down all the notes, and so I can focus on writing. I haven't watched the last 10 minutes of any game this year because I've just focused on writing, and I go back later and watch it because there's no point in watching it. And I think that the expectation should be at least make the fourth quarter interesting and give yourself a shot to win it in the last few minutes of the game.
A couple things that have Colorado fans concerned out there is, one, is Rick George going to make this hire on his own like he did with Karl Dorrell, or are they going to use a search committee or a search firm? Because of Karl Dorrell's failure here, I think fans want there to be more people involved in this search, which I totally understand. And the other thing is the comments made by Chancellor Phil DeStefano. He's just going to get murdered for this on social media because I don't know if he's naive or just doesn't care about football, but the transfer portal is a big deal in 2022.
Yep.
Yes, high school recruiting is important, but you're not going to sustain success if you cannot bring in second and third year guys via the portal. And so the pool of guys that they can bring in as transfers is really small for the University of Colorado right now. And then you throw on top of that the lack of recent success. It's just really hard to be competitive. And so it doesn't sound like Phil DeStefano thinks there's going to be any changes in that regard in terms of the progress towards degree requirements that are in place here at the university, which makes me think it's going to be hard to attract a top-level coach to want to take this gig when you can't get the players to be competitive on the field. You're not Stanford, you're not Vanderbilt. You can't compare yourself to those schools academically.
Yeah, and Karl Dorrell, there was a lot of things going on there that it just didn't work, right? But you feel for him because that limited what he could do in building this roster, right? He told me that there's just certain guys he can't even look at. I've heard that from other coaches as well. I mean, we're talking about football, but it's the same thing with basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball. Those programs have somewhat of a ceiling when you can't go get the same talent level that your peers are getting. And when a Utah or Cal or whoever has a pool this big, and CU is going to operate out of this pool, you're setting up your next coach for the same type of deal. And we're going to be doing this again in 2-3 years. And so if you don't adapt, then yeah, you're just setting yourself up for doing this every couple of years and not ever living up to your expectations.
Rick talked more about NIL probably today than he has at any other point, and we know that he does not like it.
Yeah.
I will say this once again. In my opinion, what's more important for this program and where they are right now is a collective to keep guys that develop and break out as stars in Boulder as opposed to breaking the rules like Rick George doesn't like and using it as an inducement. I understand that Rick George can't publicly talk about a collective and how they're forming that. That's got to be something that's formed by the boosters. But to me, aside from the transfer restrictions, that's another big part if they really want to stay competitive going forward. And then, hey, if you are able to keep the Christian Gonzalez's of the world here and you start winning more football games, and then maybe, the boosters can have a little bit more of an impact and want to have more of a participation in NIL when this program is winning. So to me, that's the first step from an NIL standpoint.
Yeah, and when you say Rick doesn't like it, he has been very adamant that he is supportive of the fact that they can profit from their name, image, likeness. But what he doesn't like is how it's being used by some programs around the country. And I understand that, it is being used as inducements around the country. He doesn't like that aspect of it. But you're right. I mean, there's got to be something done. I agree with you. The top priority has got to be find something that keeps your guys here. because you look at this team right now. This is a pretty decent freshman class that's here.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
You'd like to keep Jordan Tyson here. You'd like to keep Anthony Hankerson here, Owen McCown, who are some of these other guys, Van Wells. You know, these guys that are playing right now, the young corners, you know, they've played, you know, up and down, but they're still talented. You want to keep these guys here, and so that's why it's important to find something that keeps them here, right? If you don't do that, then you're just going to be doing the same old deal. And again, if you're not changing the academic aspect of it, then you're going to continue to try to you know, fill in the gaps with high school kids that you're trying to develop. And once you develop them, I mean, all you're doing is you're becoming the Oakland A's, and you know, you're developing guys that for the New York Yankees, you know, and the New York Yankees are, you know, most of the programs out there, they don't have the same restrictions. So you know, they lost good players at TCU and Iowa State and, you know, Michigan State. That, I mean, it wasn't all USC and Oregon. It was, you know, I mean, that right now it's set up for them to be a farm club.
Yep. When we talked about the coaching search when Mike McIntyre got fired or when Mel Tucker left, we spent so much of that time just talking about what type of candidate they would go for. Now we're talking more about the things that are holding CU back from being successful. The landscape has changed quite a bit in the last couple of years, and I don't know if Phil DeStefano really understands just how important that is based on his comments today. Yes, firing Karl Dorrell was the right move, but if nothing else changes, it's going to be really hard for that next head coach to have success here.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I feel for the next head coach if he's got to deal with the same thing. And hopefully the next coach does a better job of dealing with it than Karl Dorrell and can somehow navigate that. But you're still operating, you know, on different rules than your peers. And that's never a good way to go into a job, is saying, hey, you're going to start with one hand tied behind your back, you know, whereas your other peers, Washington State can go have a pretty good football team because they can get guys in. And so Washington State and Little Pullman is going to be better than you are because they can get in, they can steal your guys that you can't keep, and they can steal, they can take these recruits that you want to get because you can't get them in.
Mike Sanford's going to make our job easy, I think, the next 8 weeks, because he does a really good job of conveying his message. And so at least it's interesting now, the next couple months, to cover this football program. It had gotten really difficult covering this program the last 5 weeks. And you've got more work to do. I've got some more work to do, and we gotta get some sleep tonight. But we'll be back on Tuesday, I think, with another analysis video, because Mike Sanford is going to chat to us again then.